Hi everyone, Mega Shorts here, bringing you another Godzilla 2014 movie action figure review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Destruction City Playset from Bandai, which comes with a Godzilla figure, a Muto monster figure, 2 planes, 2 helicopters, 1 battleship, and several destructible buildings. Got this set from a local Toys R Us store last week for £19.99. It was one of only 3 left they had in there at the time, so I was pretty happy that I managed to get while I was in there. I also got the Tailstrike Godzilla figure, and I've already done a review of that. Now, the first thing I'm going to review from this set is the Godzilla figure, but before we take a look at him, we're just going to take a quick look at the packaging. If we take a look at the front, we can see the figures and the accessories that they come with in a cleared plastic bubble, and around that we can see the name of the set and a really nice picture of Godzilla from the new film. On the top we can see the Godzilla 2014 logo once again and the name of the set, and then on the back we can see a bit more information about the set written in several different languages and a few pictures of the figures and the buildings. And then at the bottom we can see the same usual product and company information, and that is pretty much it for the packaging. Okay, so here we have Godzilla. Now, this figure of him is a completely new one. It doesn't reuse any parts from existing Godzilla figures from Bandai, and unlike most Bandai Godzilla figures, this one is made out of quite hard plastic instead of vinyl. Now, this Godzilla is said to be the tallest one yet, at 350 feet tall, but we can see that this figure of him isn't quite as tall as these figures of his predecessors from Godzilla Final Wars and Godzilla Tokyo SOS. But while this Godzilla figure may be quite a small one, it still does have quite a good amount of detail, making it look a lot like Godzilla from the new film. His head is pretty nice on this figure. It is quite nicely detailed. It's got quite a few scales around his eyes and around his snout, and he's also got those really nice yellow creepy eyes which have been quite carefully painted on this figure, and he's also got these nice white teeth as well. Quite like the fact that they've gone for an open mouth on this figure as well, so you can pretend that he's either roaring or perhaps firing his atomic breath. Below his head we can see his new set of gills, which have been painted with dark grey like most other parts of the figure. And leading down towards his legs and his tail we can see loads of scales. Some of them are different sizes to others, and some of them are different shapes to others, and I think it's really impressive that Bandai can make such a small figure like this and make it look just as detailed as some of the other really big Godzilla figures out there. It really does look quite nice, and I'm sure a lot of collectors and young fans of the new film will like this figure. I quite like the lightly coloured chest on this new Godzilla design as well. It's not something we've seen on other Godzilla suit designs in the past, and it has got some really nice detail on this figure. You can see some really nice small scales just on the neck, and these really big ones between his arms, and this row of rectangular ones leading down towards his tail, which has got quite a few creases in its skin. The legs are quite good as well. They're quite nice and big like they are in the new film, and they've got quite a few spikes going along them down towards his feet, which are a lot smaller than those of other Japanese Godzillas we've seen in the past, but they have been sculpted and painted quite nicely on this figure, and you can see quite a few creases in the skin around them. Moving on to his spikes now, we can see that these are quite similar to those of other Godzilla designs from the past. They start off quite small on the neck, and then they get quite big around his back, and then they get quite small as they go down the tail. They are quite nice on this figure. They have got a lot of detail like those of the larger Godzilla figures from the new film. If you take a look at them up close, you can see that they've got lots of scratches on them, and also what seem like little holes as well. I just would have liked them a bit more on this figure if they were painted with a lighter shade of grey, because they are just the same grey as most other parts of the figure, and it would have been nice to have that lighter paint on them so they would stand out a bit more. And I also would have liked them a bit more if they were perhaps a bit big around here, but I still think they are quite nice. Okay, now it's time to take a look at this Godzilla figure's articulation. Now, the articulation you get on this figure is pretty basic, but this is pretty much normal for a Godzilla figure of this size. The arms can move up and down from the shoulders like so, and his legs can move backwards and forwards on these joints, and that is all the articulation you get on this figure. Not a lot, but this is pretty much normal for a Godzilla figure of this size, as I said before. I just think it could have been a bit better if he had a tail joint so he could move it around like he can on this Godzilla figure, but I'm still quite happy with this figure. And in my opinion, this is a pretty nice Godzilla figure. I'm quite happy with it. I really like the detail that this figure has. As I said before, I think it's really, really good that Bandai can make a figure that's this small and still make it look pretty much just as detailed as some of the really big Godzilla figures out there. I think the sculpts that they've used for this figure is fantastic. It's really nice and accurate. The paintwork is really nice on most parts of the figure, and the articulation is pretty good as well. I just think it could have been a bit better if it had some bigger spikes around the middle of his back. I would have also liked them a bit more if they were painted with a lighter shade of grey, and I think the figure could have been a bit better and perhaps a bit more fun if it had a tail joint so that you can move that around a bit. But despite those gripes, I'm still quite pleased with this figure, and out of 10 I give it a 9 out of 10. That's pretty much it for the Godzilla figure, and now it's time to review the Muto monster. Okay, so here we have one of the Muto monsters from the new film. To me this one looks like a mixture of Gaios from the Gamera films and the Cloverfield monster, making it a very bizarre looking creature and quite unlike any Godzilla villain we've seen in the past. The figure has got some quite nice detail on it. On the head sculpt we can see that he's got these really nice big red long eyes, and there's also quite a lot of creases in the skin around them. These big legs here have got some cracks in the skin as well, and they've also got this really nice red paint which fades in quite nicely from the dark brown paint that's been used for most other parts of the body. On his chest, or her chest, we can see that it's got this really big obvious rib cage and these little legs here, and he's got these really big horse-like legs at the back as well. Nothing on the back really. There's a few more creases in the skin and you can make out a bit of the bone structure, and there's this great big CE on his bum as well. So yeah, it's not a bad figure for detail and paintwork. I really like the detail around the head and the chest, and I love the way this dark brown fades into the red on these legs here. Those are my two favourite things about this figure. But sadly, this figure doesn't have any articulation. It may seem like the arms are meant to move because they are made from separate pieces of material to the rest of the figure, but whenever I move them up or down, they just bend back into place. So yeah, if you are getting this figure, don't bend these back or forward too far because they easily could break off and then you'd probably have to glue them back onto the figure. Personally, I would have liked the figure a lot more if it did have some joints so that you can move these legs up and down, and it would have been nice if perhaps these ones had some as well. But because I have this figure as a display piece, the articulation or lack of articulation doesn't really bother me much. So yeah, it is an okay figure. Out of 10 I'd probably give it a 7 or an 8 out of 10. Pretty nice sculpt, nice detail and nice paintwork, but as I said before, I think it could have been a bit better if it had some articulation. Now obviously the Destruction City Playset would not be a Destruction City Playset without some buildings for Godzilla and the Muto monster to destroy. Now in this set you get two sets of skyscrapers and what appears to be a blue version of the Golden Gate Bridge. Now there's two different versions of this set out there. There's one that has these buildings painted with green, which is obviously the version that I have, and there's another where these buildings are painted with light grey instead. Now if given the choice I would have gotten the grey version, but I wasn't actually able to find this one when I was in Toys R Us when I got this set, and I think the other version may perhaps be a exclusive to another store somewhere else, or perhaps a limited edition variant. I'm not 100% sure about that at the moment, but I know some other people on YouTube do have it already, so it is out there somewhere. The buildings themselves are quite nice. They have obviously got quite basic paintwork, but they have got some quite nice detail on them. You can see the doors on these garages or storage facilities down here, and you can see all the windows and frames going up the skyscrapers, and there's also quite a nice bit of detail on the bridge. And because they are made out of several pieces of plastic each, you can have Godzilla and the Muto monster destroying them quite easily like so. So you can recreate your favourite scenes from the film where Godzilla may be destroying the buildings just by himself, or where he may be having a fight with the Muto monster. Now even though these buildings may be painted with very bizarre colours in this version of the set, I still do quite like them a lot, and they're great for recreating certain scenes from the film, or just making up your own scenes with Godzilla and other characters. The set also comes with 2 jets, 2 helicopters and 1 battleship. Now these aren't really in scale with the buildings or the figures that the set comes with, but they are really nice and I do like them a lot. They are surprisingly detailed, especially the battleship that has loads of detail around the middle. I think this is probably based on one of the ships that we saw Godzilla moving out of the way with his spikes in the first trailer for the film, and I think these jets are probably the ones that we see falling out from the sky in the trailers as well. The jets and the helicopters are quite nicely detailed as well. You can see the detail of the windows on them and some other parts of their designs, and the nice feature about the helicopters is that you can actually spin the blades around as well. We can also see that the jets have missiles underneath them as well. So yeah, even though they may not be in scale with each other or the other things in this set, they are still quite nice. Okay, now it's time for me to give a summary of my thoughts on this set. Overall, I think the Godzilla Destruction City Playset is a really nice addition to my Godzilla toy collection. I think this is a great set for not only collectors who have grown up with Godzilla, but also fans of the new upcoming film. I really like the 2 figures that this set comes with. I like the buildings a lot as well, and I think the army vehicles are a nice addition to it. And if I was to give it a rating out of 10, I'd give it a 8 out of 10. It's a really nice set, but I would have liked it a bit more if the 2 figures had a bit more articulation. I would have liked Godzilla a bit more if he had some bigger and perhaps lighter spikes, and I would have liked the buildings a bit more if they were painted with some different colours. But despite those gripes, I'm still really pleased with this set, and I'm glad that I picked it up when I did. And that is pretty much it for my review of the Godzilla Destruction City playset. If you want to share your thoughts on this figure or the other things that this set comes with, feel free to do so in the comment section below or in a video response. Not sure what my next Godzilla figure review will be yet, but hopefully I will let you guys know sometime soon. Thanks for watching this review, guys.